Okay, I believe I'm ready now. So we're going to start in with a jigsaw puzzle tutorial that will take us about 45 minutes to an hour at the most, maybe even less. Depends on how long I talk. So this is a favorite actually of a lot of people, and I had it archived and I recently pulled it out and kind of cleaned it up a little bit and made a sample project, and here it is. So for spring 2013 it is in the iOS application development directory, and it is in the example projects. Oops, you know what? It's in the other class. It's not in this one, leading you to the wrong spot. I put it in the Object-Oriented Programming and Objective-C class, which is, it belongs there too. Source code examples, and it is down at the bottom. It's called Jigsaw Puzzle Tutorial and Jigsaw Puzzle Solution. So if you want, you can do both of them. Let's see what the jigsaw puzzle looks like. Also, I'll run the solution so you can sort of see what we're going to build first, because sometimes I think it's helpful actually to see what we're going to build first. So I downloaded it and I have unzipped it, and I'm going to run it right now so we can see what the jigsaw puzzle look like. So here's the my jigsaw puzzle only has 4 pieces, and I'll show you how I got these 4 pieces in a few minutes. So if you really want to do this, well, figure out how we're going to do it first, and then after we figure out how we're going to do it, you can do it at home, and you can have more than 4 pieces. And I make kind of big pieces too. So if I run this here, let's see what it looks like. And this is just a simple PNG image that I downloaded from the internet. Any moment now it should come up. Alright, so now what makes this a jigsaw puzzle? This is what makes it a jigsaw puzzle. I can put things on top of things. I can put things, actually it's interesting, this goes underneath. It's probably the order on the view that they're placed. This goes on top, this is on top. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to see if I can solve my puzzle here. I think I got my puzzle going on here. There we go. Let's see it line the pieces up. Actually, I didn't really do a good job cutting them. This one here, I'm slightly off on this piece right here. So, mine are not perfect pieces. But the idea is to start with some unsorted pieces and then drag them together to create this piece down here, which doesn't move. I just put it down here for visual aid. So, if you're bored, you can, maybe make it a little bit more interesting. I don't know. But make more pieces than 4 to make it challenging. So, how do you get those pieces? Well, let me tell you how I got the pieces before we start, because that's the first thing people are going to want to know. How do you get the pieces, right? So I took this image. In fact, here I'll do it with a brand new image. So one of the things you can do is just go out to an internet website, and I have this one that I like to go to. It's iconfinder.com, which gives you a bunch of free icons, and then you can type something in to search on it, like I don't know, iOS. Let's try that out. Oh, that's interesting. I got those pieces. Well, any picture at all. So, actually, here, let me pick something out. Funny, how's that? See what happens when we search on funny. Oh, we get little happy faces and stuff. So, I'm going to pick this one here. And I'm just going to say, I just want to show you how I'm going to do this using a preview, no special software at all. Actually, I like this recycling thing. Actually, that looks pretty cool. PNG. So I'm saving this trash symbol to my desktop. And I'm going to go into preview by double-clicking on the trash symbol over here. And then I see it in here. And then I can resize it. We know how to resize it because we learned how to make icons to put on our apps. And we go into here, tools, and we can adjust the size if we want, make it bigger or smaller. Or we could do this. This is what I'm going to do here. I'm actually going to select a piece of it. So if I figured out how big it was, I could do some math on it. This is 128 by 128. So here, if I make it easier for myself, I can go 100 by 100. And then I can go 50-50. So, which is what I tried to do with the other one. So if I go like this, and do a square that's 50-50. So let's just make a square that's 50-50, actually, if I can do that real quick here. Hello. 47, 48. I guess there's probably a better way of doing this, but so I need to go this way a little bit more. I'm trying to go 50 by 50. Here I got 55. It's kind of like our tic-tac-toe game. I got 50 by 50. See, this moves around. So I can go and put it here and go, okay, that's going to be piece number 1. So I'm going to go here and go copy. And then I can come back up here and say new from clipboard. And now I have piece 1. So I label this one, save as 1A. Sounds pretty good. Save. And see over here, this thing is still moving around, so I can move it over here and go in here. If I found the 50%, which is probably a better way of doing this, and then I can save it as a B and a C and D, or whatever, however you want to do it. Take a big old picture, break it up into little 50 by 50 pieces. So all your pieces are the same size, and you can put the pieces together. So that's how I did this one, but I was kind of sloppy. I just did it in like 2 seconds, and I wasn't really measuring it. I just kind of eyeballed it. So I'm sure there's more different ways you can do it, more technical ways, but make some pieces. And so people say, well, then what if your pieces are all going to look square? Does that look square to you? No. So if I save the sucker here, actually I think I saved it. It's called 1A. And if I you go here, let's say for example, open up this project. This is the finished project. I'm going to take 1A out of here, and so I'm going to delete 1A. Delete, and I'm going to delete from the project, so I'm going to move it to trash, and I'm going to put a new 1A in here, this one in here. I'm going to copy it in. This piece doesn't look like a square, so now when I run it, you know, I can have something. It does, well, actually it does, because I got this little piece going on here, but bad looking piece. So if you pick an image with a clear background, you won't have like square looking pieces. So when this loads, this piece isn't, well, these pieces look like squares to me, but they're not really square. They're kind of oddly colored squared one. Can you get pieces that look like jigsaw puzzle pieces if you buy one of those expensive programs? I'm sure there's one. So you can move this around now and put that guy somewhere to make that recycling thing. But now my jigsaw puzzle's messed up, so. But it doesn't look like a square anymore. So you could be creative with it. Or you could buy an expensive software package that actually does it. I think there's a couple of utilities out there that take an image and breaks it up into little pieces. So the pieces aren't exactly square. So you can have one that overlaps. As an example, actually, let me run this again. Real quick here. For the pieces, my 1A is missing, but I can do the rest of it. You can overlap the pieces when you put them together. So if you have one that has a insert and one that has a outsert, like a male and a female kind of piece, you can put one of them on top of the other like this. So actually, this one here as an example, and you can see I'm kind of overlapping them a little bit. So you can put them together. And then you won't be, actually, if you do it correctly, you won't be able to see where they overlap either. So. Or you could be creative. You could put a grid out here if you wanted to. So I didn't do that, but you know how our pieces for our tic-tac-toe game? You could put a grid out there and have pieces on the grid. You know, put pieces in spots or something. So make tons of little children's games out of this, basically. Put the round peg on the square hole or something.
So each one of those was in image view?
Each one of them, yeah, I'm going to go through the tutorial in a few minutes. Are you already done with the tutorial?
No.
Okay. Yeah, these are images. Let's build this sucker. Okay, let's build it. Now that we looked at the finished product and you see what you're building, I'm going to throw this stuff away here. Clean up my desktop for a second here. Okay. So here's the PDF tutorial. So let's go ahead and build this thing. Let's see. It's going to be a single view application. I called it touch control. You can call it anything you want. Open up Xcode. So let's open up Xcode and create a new Xcode project. And single view application. Next. And so now I'm going to call this one Jigsaw Puzzle. Jigsaw P, just in case I don't have that written somewhere. Actually, I don't know if I have anyway, just leave it. Jigsaw. How about my Jigsaw? Just my Jigsaw. Don't use the storyboard. We don't need it. We're going to use a single view. And automatic reference counting, we want to use that as much as possible. Leave everything on the defaults. Go ahead and press next. And go ahead and press create. This is actually a very simple application. You'll be so amazed how simple this actually is. It looks like it's sophisticated, but it really isn't. Alright, so here's our lovely XIB file if I click on it. And let's go back to my instructions and see where I'm at here. And expand the classes. Notice the interface builder has created a bunch of stuff for you. It's created a viewcontroller.xib file for you. Double click or click on the viewcontroller XIB file to bring it up into the interface builder. Select and view and bring up the attribute inspector and change the background color. You don't have to, but let's change the background color. I'm actually going to change my screen size to 3.5 because I like the smaller screen. Don't ask me why. Make anything you want. Make all the changes you want to your view. I think I'll make this one green. I think the other one was like a... okay, I like this color. Okay, good. Alright, now we're done playing around with the view. That's the fun part. Image views. All of them are image views. So image views from the library. Drag 4 of them and put them on the view window. So drag 4 image views. In fact, you know what I didn't do is I didn't make those 4 little pieces available. They're in the project. Download the project, the finished project, and we'll drag them from the finished project into the new project. And I'll show you how to do that in a few minutes, just in case you haven't missed it. But let's put 4 of the image views. In fact, I'll put more than 4 just to make mine interesting. So if you come down here in the bottom and type in image view or image, we have one item comes up, image view. And I'm going to cut and paste as soon as I put it in the view. So I'm going to put it in the window. I don't want it to take up the whole window. There we go. I'm going to make my little image view, oh, I don't know. Maybe I'll do 50 by 50. It depends on how big I make my pieces. But I don't have any pieces right now, so I'm just going to populate this with a bunch of miscellaneous stuff. I'm sorry? Oh. It's not going to auto-size. It's how big you make the image view is how big it's going to show. It'll be stretched out if the view is bigger than the image that you're putting in. It'll be scrunched up if the view is smaller. It won't change. If I add an image to this right now, it'll fit in this spot right here. This is exactly what we did for the tic-tac-toe game last week. So we just created an image view of a particular size because we want to be able to piece them together and all to fit in the screen. So the screen is really about 300 by 300. That's what you're looking at. Well, 240 by 300, or 320 by 240, whatever I think is about the screen size. So you can work with that, and you can and adjust it to meet your needs. So I'm going to take and once I have it, I'm going to copy and paste it. So now I'm going to paste it in. And just paste in a bunch of them. Well, maybe I'll put 5 of them in here, 4 or 5 of them. All your puzzle pieces are just pasted image views. Doesn't matter where you put them. Doesn't matter how many you have either. Because they're all going to work together on the same controller. So I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of them. I put 7 of them in there. And let me put 8. Make it an even number. The first one I only put 4 of them in there. So I'm going to get bored if I don't make this a little different. So you can put a big one in here and put the master in there if you want. Like what I did on the original if you want. So now we have to put some images in here to populate into the image view. So let me just make sure I haven't missed anything here. So it says drag 4. Drag as many as you want. Image views, and select one of each of the image views to put in each one of the things that you have. You also have to make sure that you are selecting user interaction enabled checkbox. So where's that going to be? It's going to be right here. So there's a little picture I put in here for you. If you click on the image over in the attributes section, there's a little button that says user interaction enabled. So let me go back and show you what I'm talking about. So here's one of my images. I'm going to drag this over a little bit so we can see it. And I see user interaction enabled. It may not necessarily be enabled by default. In fact, this one wasn't. So user interaction. So it was on the window itself is where I had clicked before. So you want the window? If you want the window, we're not going to really use the window. We're going to check for touches on the images. But so this one is a user interaction enabled. This one, user. I guess I could have done this before I pasted it. Probably next time I'll do it before I paste it, huh? You could select all of them if you want to. Yeah. I only have 7 or 8 of them, so now I'm done. So I have them all selected. Hopefully you have them all selected as well. So now is the problem with the images. So if you downloaded the original project here and you double click on the touch control, you see the images in here. You can drag these guys into your project, so that's what I'm going to do. So in my, you see the little plus sign that shows up? So I'm dragging and I'm going to drop them in here, copy them in here. I could actually just put one of them in here, but I'll just do a variety here. Finish. Oh, here's a 2B. I don't have a 2B in here yet. Oh, I'll put a happy in here too. These are all my puzzle pieces. My puzzle's not going to make very much sense because I messed up one of the pieces, but actually here I can make a lot more sense. I'll put the piece back. I have the original 1A right here. So I'm going to take a 1A here, rename it. If I can select on it. If I click it correctly, I can actually edit the name. There it is. 1C. There we go. I'll drag a 1A, put it back in here. Alright, so now I have my 1A, 1B, there we go, 2A, 2B. So I have my original pieces back in here. Hopefully you have done that too, or you've taken other pieces. I'm sure no one has created a jigsaw puzzle in this amount of time, but we're ready to start populating. So go ahead and put one of the images in each one of the boxes. You can duplicate images if you have more images than you have image views than you have images. So go back to the XIB file. For each one of them, up at the top here, you're going to select one of those images. So this has got to have 1A in it. This is going to have 1B in it. This is going to have 1C. I don't know why, because it's in there. It's the oddball piece. 2A, 2B, 2B. There we go. Which one is this? This is going to be, oh, let's put happy in here. There we go. I got some extras. I'll put extra 2Bs in here, and I'll put a 1A up here. Let's see. My game's going to be kind of confusing to people. If you run it right now, you should get the images showing up on the screen, and everything should look normal. If it doesn't, it's probably a bad time to stop and start over again. So I always like to test it when I get the UI done. That way I don't have to go back through and do it all over again. In fact, now lately I've been making copies of the UI. So once it's done, I'll zip the folder up and save it on my desktop so I don't have to worry about it. So nothing's happening now. So I just got these images in here. Nothing's going on yet, but at least I've got the spur and it's working so far. Alright, so now I'm going to do the hard part. It's not really hard, it's one method that's going to do it. So I'm going to go back here and look at the tutorial here. Open up the view controller file and create 4 image variables. So these are variables for each one of my 4 images. Well, I'm going to create 6 of them because I got more. In fact, maybe I'll just do 4 and leave some of them out because I got so many of them. And I set this up for 4. So I'm going to cut and paste this actually. I'm not making properties, I'm making IB outlets for the 4. Copy. And when we put it into the view controller, if we click on the editor button here in the middle, it brings up the view controller.h. I'm going to hide the side panel over here. In the view controller, I'm going to paste it in between the interface and the end. What am I doing here? I'm making properties programmatically because I'm gonna drag them over. So I'm actually gonna make, because I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I'm gonna actually put in 4 more. So watch this. I'm gonna just do this and go copy. Why? Because then I don't have to drag them over. Paste. So this is gonna be 5, 6, 7, and 8. And then you see these little empty holes show up. Okay. I'm not making properties out of them though. I'm not making these are IB outlets. So it's a little bit different than making a label property that's inside of the code that's going to affect the label. Instead, this is going to be used as an outlet, and I'm going to pick up the event that's going to be generated when I click on it. So, which is why it's being done this way. We'll see in a few minutes. We're going to wire one of the IB outlets to each image view on the campus to the wire the connection component. Wire the connection, essentially. Just click on the empty circle and drag it to the image. So go ahead and wire them up with which one you want to have in which order. This example, this one here is going to be number 1. I'm not pressing, I actually don't have to press the control button here either. This one here is going to be 2. This one here is going to be 3. This one here is going to be 4. Oops. So now they're all wired up. So if I hover over them, I see which one is associated with which one. Don't want to do them all to one button, but we probably could if we wanted to. If we did that, we could put groups together in one button if you wanted to make this a little bit more interesting. You can totally change program logic by doing groups, actually. So. But we're just going to go one piece at a time here, and because we want to know which piece is actually going to be looked at. So now we're going to open up the view controller, and here is the one method. So this is the end of the tutorial. So I say this is like a half-hour tutorial. One method is doing it all. What is it? It's a touch event. Because we've made the images respond to events. They're going to respond to touches. So open up the view controller file and make the following change. Add a method to move the images around as follows. So what is the method going to do? Well, UI touch. If you remember from the iOS class, I showed you some slides at the beginning that we're looking at events. This is an event that's automatically generated from the event system that is, there's no way to generate this, it just does it automatically. There's no code to program for it. It's there for you. And we're going to get the touch event and we're going to put it into an object reference called touch. And so it's going to be event all touches. Anything happens on that screen, we're going to pick it up. So long touch, short touch, double touch, everything's going to be picked up on any object, anything. Then we're going to create a CG point touch location. Where did you touch it? So the location in view, self view. So inside of the view, it's also going to pick up the view touches as well. So when you press the background, you could have something else happen if you wanted to. If the touch view, if it's the view, and if it equals, you touched on the view and the view component, if equals image 1, then image 1.center is equal to the touch location. Take the center of the image that you're touching, and that's going to be the touch location. Yeah?
Do we need to change the image 1, image 2, image 3 to the files that we've imported? Or does it just automatically know?
We connected them this way, so you automatically know this is image 1. We wired them. So after you put the images on here and you populate them, image views, and you populate them with images, right. We're wiring the IB outlets image 1 through 8.
So you didn't just copy the code?
I did. I copied it. I copied it in here.
Yes, I did, but mine doesn't respond.
And it's not going to respond because we don't have the code in there yet. Do you have solid buttons here? I mean solid circles? And are you in the viewcontroller.h file? When we're all done, I'll come over and take a look. But
I have
actually, here, let me pause this for a second. In order for your buttons to respond and be identified as image 1 through image 8 in this example, when you hover your mouse over it should highlight a button. If it's not highlighting, your buttons are not connected. Anybody else having a problem? Okay, hold on one second. Let me pause again. Capture. Okay, yes, the other thing that we found out, don't make this into UI image. If you drag it over, I think it turns into a UI image, doesn't it? Doesn't? Actually, let me try it out. I can tell you if it does or not. Control drag. No, it's an image view. I don't know how you got yours to say image on it.
No, I just typed it.
Oh, you typed it. Okay, that's probably why. It is an image view. Okay, let me go back to the code that we were looking at. So if we're looking at the view here that we got touched, and if the item is image number 1 as identified, then the center is going to be the touch location. If it's number 2, then the center is going to be the touch location. Number 3 is going to be touch location, touch location, touch location. Well, what are we going to do? We're going to move it. So it automatically, this is behavior that automatically functions for us. So we have the touch begin and the touch end, and we're changing the touch location to the location. So by default, the center of the touch location of the image turns into the end. When you first touch it, the touch begin starts, and then we have the touch end. So if you move it in between the touch, you've dragged it, the center is now equal to the location that you dragged it to. Automatically from the touch begins and touch ends functionality. Which is interesting that that works that way. So now if I cut and paste and stick this in here, that's all I got really. The entire program should hopefully run at this point. So I copy. This is like one of the easiest tutorials out there. I'm putting this, by the way, I'm putting this in the viewcontroller.m file. I'm not creating any synthesizes because I don't have any properties. I've created these as variables. And these are IB outlet variables that are of data type. They're IB outlets that are of data type UI image views. And this is image 1 through image 8. So here I'm only putting code in for 1 through 4. I'm just going to stick it right above the view did load. And now if I wanted to, I can put in a touch control for 5 through 8. Or I can run it right now and see what happens, actually, when I run it. So let's see what happens. So touch is moved. Touch is with the event. So it's picking up the event and it's moving it to the new center location. Depending upon when you stop touching it, it's going to be at that location. Because it's going to automatically move. And this is a method that's inherited from the touch controls that are automatically part of the API. So this guy moves. This is number 2. This is probably number 3. I'm going to line him up correctly. This is probably number... Oh, hey, what happened? This is number 4. What happened? They're not moving. That's a 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or whatever. These guys aren't going to move. Yeah. Yeah, no, I know why. I only have 4 of them. I don't have these in the code. This one's in the code, but a lot of good that's going to do. This one's not very useful. So, anyway, hopefully you get the, and then, you know, I can stack them all up right here if I wanted to. But there is a way of putting in the order of them so that one of them's on top of the other. That's a lot more difficult, believe it or not. So we'll just leave that one alone. So these are my 4 straggling pieces that weren't part of the grouping because they didn't get part. So we like the easiest project on earth. So people go, oh, I want to learn about touch controls. I'll wait until you see gestures. We're not going to do gestures tonight. We'll do gestures next time. But gestures are just as easy. Pinches and this up and down and move. Not so hard. You just add a gesture to it. Touch is given to you automatically by the events. Gestures, you have to add the gesture control to it. Yes?
Still I'm unable to connect those images to my images.
Okay, hold on one second. Let me pause this again. Okay, so the common problems we found when I paused the video here, just for people watching this video, is that if you leave out the opening and closing brackets here, that was a problem with the connection. Also, these are UI image views, not images. And some people actually aren't getting the connection working, which is kind of odd. So there must be something about, did you make the view? Make sure you have the background view also set for user interaction enabled on the view. You have to have everything set on the user interaction enabled in order to capture the touch control, yes? Right now I can't really tell you why that's not working then. So, try these solutions, see if the solution works. And if it does, compare the solution with your code and see what might be different, which is probably good. It may also be something to do with, I don't know, if you're using a storyboard, it might be a problem. So I don't know, you said you weren't, you have an XIB file. So. Interesting. Okay. Any more questions or problems with this? Oh, yes?
I guess if you had a lot of images, you'd want to put them all into a different directory or folder.
You could. I put them all in the big folder here, but you could create a separate subfolder if you wanted to.
How's that done?
If up here, you can go File, New, and then you can go Window, Target, Project. Let me guess here. Grouping.
That makes sense.
So I can go here, Images. Yeah, they used to call it folder, now it's called grouping. And then I can take this and I can drag it into the grouping folder. I've got here images. Older Xcode projects had a ton of different subfolders. I don't know why they call them groupings, but okay, groupings. The current version has very few, actually. It used to have one that was called Resources, and it used to have the XIB files in it. And you can make one for view controllers and put all your view controllers in there if you want. Doesn't matter where anything is in this project. As long as it's within the same directory structure, the code will find it. So here, I moved all those around, but my pictures are still here. If I delete one, I'm going to get a funny little thing that shows up. So actually, I'm just going to throw this away, so I'll delete it and we'll see what happens here. If I delete it and I remove the reference out of the project, but I don't remove it from the project, it doesn't remove the physical file. If I remove the physical file completely, then I have this little question going on here, which means I removed it completely. So. Okay, that was supposed to be an extremely easy one. So, yes?
If we have multiple images, let's say some 15, 16, that many jigsaw puzzle pieces, would we be writing image 1, image 15, or is there any simpler way of representing them?
This is keeping track of each one individually, and which is why we made different image values for each one of them. You could put them in, as I was saying before, you could put them in groups. If that were the case, you can drag them over. So instead of this one going to that one and this one going to that one as an example, we can just change it so they all go.
There's
But
no such concept like array or collection or something like
you could put them into an array, actually. You could make this a little bit more sophisticated. Instead of having this, you could put an array. But this would be very hard to connect the outlets. The IV outlets sort of have to go this way in order to keep track of each one of them individually. So if you had them in groups and one of them moved, then the other one should possibly move. So if both of these guys, let's see, this is a good test here actually. Well, they're all on this one, so let's put them on here too. Oh, it's only one per, it's actually only one per grouping. Let's see. Okay, so now I have 1 and 2 on here, but it's the same one. Let's try and do it here. I think it's going to be 1 to 1. Yeah, I've just moved it. Yeah. Nah, it's less complicated, I think, if you just keep them all separated out. Because then you're going to get some odd behavior. You move one image and the other one's going to move if they had 2 of them together. But you can only have one outlet for one image. So. Alright, you can add that to your collection of games along with tic-tac-toe. So. And I believe that was the end of the tutorial. on this one here. We're still got about 15 minutes. The other objective we have before we have to take a break here for the camera crew, unless she's going to come in now. Are you going to do it now? Hold on 1 second. Alright, so hopefully you have a working jigsaw puzzle. If not, play around with it. Don't know why it wouldn't work for you. But, okay. Moving right along. So last week we started with part 1 of friends. We were making friends. The only way I can make friends is to do them programmatically. So we're going to make some friends. So part 2, we're going to enhance the friends, keep more information about them, and then learn how to actually create the plist file without having to drag it over and drop it over into Simulator, because you can't do that when you deploy the application and put it into the store. Unfortunately, that's in the last part. So if you haven't gotten a working version of your TabeView controller, you can download the finished product, which will work just fine. In fact, I'm going to work from the finished product because I can't find my version of it that I created last week. If you go into the iOS application development folder, go into the example projects folder. We're in this big old series here. I put all of them in here. I'm hoping we're going to get through it tonight. We might not, it depends. But if not, we'll cover it next week. But tutorial 1, this is the solution you want, part 1 solution. If you have part 1 solution, then you're going to have to manually drag over, and just for the benefit of those people who are doing this, download part 1 solution. Unzip it. You'll get, I didn't download part 1 solution. I have friends here, number 2. Hold on 1 second, I need to do it. Part 1 solution. Here it is. Unzip it. We have in here the plist file that needs to be put into the emulator manually. So eventually we're going to avoid this problem completely, but for right now this part doesn't do it yet. This first part didn't do it. So I'm going to leave this out here. I'm going to open up. I have to run it on my emulator in order to create the application spot. For those of you who missed part 1, you need to do this if you're going to do this, if you're going to follow along with part 2.
You can use the part 1.
Yeah, I'm going to do it right now. I'm going to use part 1. Or you can use the one you did. If you have it already done on your computer, leave it alone. We'll pick up where we left off. I removed it, so I don't have it anymore, so I'm going to put it back. So I'm running the project so that I can create an entry in my emulator to install it on there. I should come up with an empty friend. No friends. So. Okay, so the St. Patrick's Day party is on which day? And which day is 16th? Saturday, the 16th. Okay. So your friends here are empty. No friends. So I'm going to close the emulator. And I'm going to find this plist file that has my only one friend, which is myself, because I put myself in there. I'm going to copy it into the correct location. So if I go into the Go or Finder Home directory, and I look into the library folder, there in the part 1 solution, part 1 tutorial, excuse me, there's instructions on how to unlock this if it is hidden from you. You need to make it visible. Application support, which is inside a library, and then iPhone simulator. 6.1 is the version I'm running. And then applications. Oh yeah, one of these has friends in it. Touch control, nope. Verse, nope. Text view, nope. One of these is going to have 2 color, nope. Jigsaw. Only got 2 left. Friends. Double click on documents, open that up. We're going to should have copied it onto the desktop. Say that one more time.
What do I do if I have iOS device by default? I open the project.
Mm-hmm.
And then I only get iOS
Oh,
device.
excellent. Let me show you that in a few minutes. Actually, I'll show it to you right now. Toggle it to, if it says iOS device.
I don't get the toggle option actually. Just
Oh. Then what you need to do is go into the Properties menu of Preferences. Click on the Downloads and make sure you have everything installed. Looks like there's some other simulators I haven't installed.
Yeah, I have 5 and 5.1.
Ooh, that's old. You have 5 and 5.1 and it says install right here, or does it say installed?
Install.
Installed. Then you should have those options showing up here. If not, I'm sorry?
It's not installed.
It's not installed. You need to install it. These are the iOS devices. These are the simulators that I only have 6.1 installed. If I look at my preferences, it looks like I need to install 6.0, 5.1, and 5.0, which I don't have installed. So if it says installed, click on the installed and install them. I'm going to leave mine alone for right now. Okay, back at the ranch here, I've copied friends.plist and I put it into the documents folder on the simulator. Now when I run it, I should have one friend that shows up. Reading file friends. Probably because I linked it instead of copying it. So let me close this for a second. Take this out. Copy. Copy. Are you guys ready? Paste. Okay, hold on one second. Let's at least get our projects ready to go. Oh, no, it's okay. It's okay. So copy and paste it, don't link it in like I just did a few minutes ago. And then if we double click on it, open it up, this time it should actually be in here, I hope. Friends is in here, so let me clean this out. Having a little bit better luck now. I think I moved it actually. Instead of copying it and linking it, I moved it. I just dragged it over. So make a copy of it and paste it into that folder. In the last part of the tutorial, we'll actually be saving it directly to the device. So now I have a friend, but when I click on the friend, nothing happens, and I only see one item in here. So now we're going to extend it a little bit, make groups out of it, and provide some functionality for using it in terms of the table view. And see, this one here, I have the lines, which is interesting. The table view I built earlier today from the parse HTML didn't have the lines, which is kind of interesting. I must have changed something in there. Okay, so if you have not done that already, hopefully you have a working version from number 1 of the tutorial, which I have now. So I'm going to close these here to make my life a little bit easier, and I'm just going to continue going until we get interrupted by that whatever it is they're doing. So, okay, so in part 1, open up the finished app. The first thing we're going to do is add a new XIB file to represent the view of each one of the cells inside of our table view. So what we did, if you were in the iOS class, the Objective-C programming class earlier today, we put HTML elements, instances of those objects inside of each one of them. Now we're going to put a view that's going to be in the form of an XIB file. So we're going to see how to nest. This project is interesting because we're going to see how to nest views inside of views programmatically and put them inside of the list, essentially. So the first thing we're going to do is add a new XIB file to represent the view of each one of the cells that's going to be in our table view. And the default table view cells are very adaptable, but we want to display 3 pieces of information instead of just one. So before we have just the friend, one item, one string that we put in each one of the cells, now we're going to put the name, the email, and the phone number of each one of our friends inside of each one of the cells. So this is the screenshot to show you what we're going to do in a few minutes here. We're going to add the new XIB file from user interface section of the iOS. So we're going to get a new file, select file, and then under the interface group we're going to select the empty over here. So empty template as shown below. because we're not going to create a view. We just want an empty interface, because we're going to turn that into a generic view that we're not a view, but it's going to be an interface that we're going to stick inside of the cells. So go ahead and in Xcode in your project, I'm going to click on Friends. Actually, I'm just going to click on the main project. Go File, New, File. And then click on User Interface. I'm not going to add a storyboard or view. I'm going to click on Empty right here. And click on Next. And it's going to be for the device iPhone family, but let me just make sure. Yep. Click Next. Make sure the device family is iPhone. Click Next again and save the file to the default project as Custom Cell. So it's going to be called Custom Cell. And the XIB extension will be added automatically. So let's go back here. So if you were making an iPad or Universal, you can change it. Actually, there's no Universal option for this, which is interesting. So this is going to be for I'm making an iPhone app, so it's going to be for iPhone. And I'm going to save it as custom cells. Don't put the XIB extension on there. It will be put on there automatically for you. And then click Create. Now you see at the top of my project I have this thing here. Well, I got nothing here. I got an empty interface going on here. Nothing much. Okay, so I'm going to go back here and see what I'm going to add to it next. Where is my, hold on one second. Table views cell object to the interface. Have we created this yet? I think we might be missing a step. Drag a new table view cell object to the interface. Okay. My instructions are not the best. We probably should put this in a separate step. Okay, so click on the XIB. We don't have anything in there. We need to create the table view cell object. Go ahead and drag a table. This should be as a separate step, which I left out of my instructions, so I'll have to edit that. Table view cell object. Go ahead and drag it to the open area. And now we're going to create this guy here as our table cell. So it's from our view. So if you select table view, you're going to get the big one. The table view cell is the one you want to select. I see these people outside, so I'm going to pause for a second and see what's going on because I'm being majorly distracted right now. Okay, let's continue where we left off. We were dragging and dropping a custom table, not a custom, but a table view cell object from the library and putting it onto the canvas. So we've dragged this table view cell and we've stuck it over here. This is what's going to end up going inside of each one of the table view items. So we have to make sure that this is going to be of a good size, and then we're going to put some labels and stuff in here. Whatever we put in here is going to end up going inside of each one of the table view items. So add 3 labels to the cell as shown below. Make the top label a little bit bigger because it's going to be the top item. then the other two, and then stretch the labels to the right. I'm sorry?
Add the identifier custom cell.
Say that one more time.
The third one, right? So we need to add an identifier custom cell, the third point.
I'm sorry.
We need to add an ID custom cell, the third point, the last one.
Give the cell the identifier custom cells as shown below. Oh yes, I'm sorry. So many distractions. It's really hard to focus here. One more step before we continue. We have to give the ID custom cells to the cells object. So if you click on the cells object, and you go into the attribute inspector, down here on the bottom where it says identifier, just like the picture, of course I put it in the picture, we're going to call it custom cell. So I'm going to cut and paste this here. So where you're putting this is in the attribute inspector under the table view under style custom. Identifier is going to be called custom cell. So we have custom, and then we're going to paste this in here. Custom cell. So now we can call this custom cell as its identifier when we refer to it. So it's giving it a, like instead of a number, we're giving it an ID associated with it. And then we're going to get other items that are going to be inside of it, are going to be enclosed inside of that ID. All right. Fourth icon from the left. The attribute. Okay. Okay, very good. Thank you for that. And now we're going to add 3 labels. Look at the focus here. So let's see. Add 3 labels. The top one's going to be larger than the rest of them because the top one's going to hold the name. And then we're going to have the 2 details underneath it. So go ahead and put 3 labels on there. We're going to set the 3 label tag values so that we can identify each one of the labels as 1, 2, and 3. So go ahead and drag the labels on there first. And so I'm going back into the library, and so label. And I'm going to put, I don't know, label 1. I'm going to make this a little bit smaller. Eventually, but I'm going to make this text a little bit bigger. I'm going to make it 20. Maybe I'll make it 20. I can change the color of the text. Make it blue. That looks pretty good. Now I'm going to add 2 more. Put them underneath. Stretch them out so they take out the more so they can hold a value. The value is going to be the information for line number 2 and line number 3 of our table view. So add 3 labels. Make the top label bigger. Stretch the labels out to the right so they will accommodate all of the text that we're going to load into it. Set the 3 label tags values to 1, 2, and 3. And this is done in the attribute inspector. And look in for the view section of the attribute inspector. So under the view, we're going to see mode left tag to 0. So we're going to have to change that. So I'm going to make this a little bit bigger so you can see what I'm talking about. Here's the view section. And I'm going to change this one to 1. Actually, I just changed the other one. So 1. 2, or you can type it in actually, 3. I'm going to remove this 1 here because I didn't mean to actually set this one here. So there we go. So my labels are now right here. You can see I have 1, 2, and 3. So they're tagged, so I can get them at the values, so I can call them by those particular tags. Let's see. We're going to need to resize this eventually, but I'm going to leave it now because I don't see the sizing in here. So click on the File Owners object of the cell and open up the Identity Inspector. Choose the Friends View Controller class as the Owners object. So we're going to make this controllable by the Friends View controller. So we're going to change the view, kind of like what we did earlier with the table view. But so we're going to click this guy here. go up here and change them. No. Friends View Controller class. Hold on one second. File Owners Object, which is what I'm in. Oops, File Inspector. That's the class. Hold on one second. Many problems with this tutorial. It's not as clear as I want it to be. Click on the File Owners object for the cell and open the Identity Inspector. Choose the File View Controllers class to be in the cell's owner object. You're trying to change the class that's associated with the window to be the Friends View Controller class. I don't think that's right, no. It's going to be of subclass cell type, so hold on one second. How come I'm not seeing the file owners? There we go. There we go. Hold on a second. Actually, here, let me pause this for a second. This is way too many interruptions here. Alright, let me get back in the swing of things here. The reason why I'm having so many difficulties is I was clicking on the window. Click on File Owners. Which project am I in? I have it set to Friends View Controller. So, the file owner for XIB is going to be Friends View Controller. When I click on the Editor button here, and I'm in here, I want Friends View Controller to show up. So, I think I'm in the wrong project actually. Is this the project that I was working in? This is the other one. Okay, so let's close this one. This is the one I just created no, this is 225.
That's the label is blue.
I'm sorry?
The label color is blue, that's the one.
Is this the one I created? Okay, good. Okie dokie, so if you haven't missed that, my user error was clicking on the window instead of clicking on the file owner. So click on file owners, don't click on the window. If you click on the window, you're not going to get the right property to show up. The older version used to bring up a pop-up window, which is a lot easier to work with, but we want to make sure that this view is being controlled by Friends View Controller. Okay, because we're going to drag and drop and we're going to stick some stuff in here. Okay, so let me go back here. Now that we have and I should have put a screenshot in here too. That would have helped actually. So, little edits I'm going to make to this. Hint, on the left yellow, I could just read my hints here. On the left yellow clear box on the left side of the panel next to the third icon on the left of the screen. Scroll the list to find the Friends View Controller. Is it really there? Oh, and here's the picture. Okay. All right. Back at the ranch here. Now, open the size inspector for the cell and note the value in the row height field. So we're going to need this value because we're going to need to put in this cell of this height inside of each one of the items in our list. So going back here, let's get rid of this here. So I'm actually going to kind of make this one a little bit smaller. Push these guys together. This guy's going to fit inside. So there we go. If I click on the attribute inspector, row height is 83, so let's see. If I make it 77, it'll match my example. Let's just make it 77. There we go. So that means I have to move some things in here. There we go. And hopefully I haven't changed the order that these guys are appearing in. Make this smaller again so I can actually kind of see this is we're good, we're good. Okie dokie. So the row height that I've got, mine set to 77. Mark down what yours is if it's not the same. Actually, it probably doesn't matter as long as it's smaller than 77. It will fit in the same spot if you use the code as is. So listen to me, I'm going to go back to here. So table view cell is table view cell. Perfect. Okay. Save all the changes that you've made so far, and then open up the friendsviewcontroller.h file. And we're going to wire the custom cell window as a property and label it as custom cell. And the added outlet property looks like this once we wire it. So let's wire the property. We really need to save it. I probably should save it with my luck tonight. So if I click on the editor, I know I've got the right one in there if I get the right one to show up here. So if you click on the box, make sure you've got the over here. Make sure you've got this one here. The size inspector. Yeah, it's on the top of the size inspector. You can adjust it this way, or you can drag and drop it. I mean, you can stretch it, stuff like that this way. Okay, so we're going to make a property for the, what are we going to make a property for? For the window, I believe. So we're going to wire the custom cell window as a property, call it custom cell. So I'm going to cut and paste this. Actually, no, I'll just do it this way. The added outlet property looks like this. We have a property here for UI table view. We're going to call it custom cell. So this one should work. Oops, take the window, control drag it. Let's see, interface. I'll put it right above. I probably should have made some space in there. Paste it. Custom cell, UI table view, connect. There we go. So now I have the custom cell as a property. I've got the items on there where I want. So now I'm going to open up friendsviewcontroller.m and I'm going to synthesize that cell, that item that I just created. So I'm going to go in here and flip over to the .m and synthesize it. So I could put it on the same line, or I could just put it underneath. I'm just going to put it underneath. So now I have added on there as well. So add a table view height for row at index path method. We're going to add this one to our viewcontroller.m file. And what we're doing is we're overloading, just like we did earlier actually with the table view cell items. We overloaded one for the row indexes, or the number of rows, index value. We're going to do this now for the height. We're going to change it to whatever value your written down number was from when we looked at the inspector on that window. So we're going to add this one to the viewcontroller.m. I'm just going to stick it right here on the top. We're again had a special character in there. This is one of the older tutorials, unfortunately. We're going to have cut and paste errors, it looks like. So I've got mine set for 77. Change your value to whatever yours happens to be. Make the following changes to the table view cell for row at index method, which already exists. Note that the method already exists from the first part that we created. Change the cell identifier string to custom cell instead of cell as follows. So we're going to have, I'm going to copy this item here. I'm going to look for cell. I want to change it to custom cell. Which method am I looking for again? I am looking for the cell for row at index path. Actually, I'm going to just make this a little bit bigger. Cell for row at index path. Here's the first line. I'm going to put, instead of loading the cell that we've identified, we're going to load the custom cell, which is that new screen that we just made. I'm going to take and comment out this one here. So we were changing it to load custom cell. Custom cell is that little window that we just created that is a table cell and that we have put in here as custom cell. Change the if cell is equal to nil test as follows. The original code just commented out. Add this new code to it. We're going to change it to custom cell instead of cell. Actually, we're going to change it a little bit more than that. Cell is going to be equal to self.custom cell. So find this part of the method, same method that we were in before. If cell is equal to nil, then load it from the bundle, which means if it's empty, load it from the bundle. Here it is right here, actually. This is the piece of code we're going to change. I'm going to comment out what's in here and just stick it underneath. Oh, what have I missed here? Probably the closing bracket. Yes, I have missed the closing bracket. Hold on one second. Configure the cell. Okay, so not your best tutorial style. I have to edit this tutorial completely now because I don't like this. But edit out this part to replace it with this one here. And this one here is going to basically use our custom cell instead of our cell. And it's going to set our cell to nil, and it's going to set the nil to custom cell. So it's going to initiate it to nil, set the custom cell to nil, load it, essentially prepare it for allocation for each one of our cells that we're going to put in there. So instead of using the generic table cell alloc for the cell, which is what we did here, our cell is going to be equal to this new custom cell that we created. So probably a better way of modifying that, but if you follow through the instructions here, that will essentially replace the existing code commented out and put the new code in. change the configure the cell section. So we configure the cell section. Let's see. Configure the cell section is underneath it. Assuming that you have this comment in here, yes?
What is that load? What is it?
The nib is this guy out here. The load is this, and load this guy in as the custom cell instead of the generic cell.
So
This is actually another word for a nib is an XIB interface. It's a window nib component. They don't use nib anymore. They use interface. Well, next step interface. So. XIB. Modern day time. So underneath there's one line of code here that says the text label from the text from where the original cell was taking the text label text for friends dictionary, was taking the first row of it and putting it in there. Well, we're going to modify that so it loads our original cell. So we're going to change the configure the cell section, which is right out underneath it, just the last line of code. The original one just commented out. The original one had this label in it here. So add the new code instead. The new code instead is going to put all three components in. So instead, our original one just took the label that was in there, set the text to the first item that was in our plist, which was the name. So now we're going to load all three items into the labels of the cell, custom cell that we created, and then load the custom cell into the table entry. So we have a hierarchy of the custom cell that we're putting in there, and these are the components that are going to be inside of it. So we're going to have a UI label. Label is going to be a temporary label that we're going to use to represent the label. The label is going to pull from Friends Dictionary, all of the keys from Friends, and we have keys 1, 2, and 3. We know that because when we go into the Friends, we have 1, 2, and 3 from our plist that we created last time. And unfortunately, you have to remember a week ago what you did with that, which is part of the problem of doing this tutorial week by week. So it's better if you do it all in one sitting. That way you're refreshed on what's going on. We're going to create a string out of that. Take the string and load it onto the label. So the label.text is going to be equal to the key string. The key string is going to be equal to whatever came out of the dictionary item for 1, 2, and 3. And the cell with tag, we're going to load it into this label with the cell with tag 1, which is why we tagged those labels 1, 2, and 3, so we can load them from the dictionary 1, 2, and 3. We see that when we go into here, if we click on that plist file. If you weren't here last time, this is where it's coming from. We have in here item 0 and 1 are coming through from the array. Looks like, no, strings. I'm sorry, we have 2 strings in an array in here. So we have 3 items that are coming through. The name and the email address and the telephone number that are coming out of that. So, where was I? I think I was in this file, towards the bottom. Here we go. Get rid of that one here. So down on the bottom of this method, right down here, we can comment out this line of code and then add the replacement code. And hopefully we won't have any problems adding it in. We're commenting out that line here. We're still leaving the end. Wow, that's a lot of code. We're still leaving the return cell at the end. I'm going to move this up here and comment it out along with this one. So when I paste it in, I just paste everything in. Next time I believe I'm going to rearrange this so I can have it. In fact, I think I'll look at parts 3, 4, and 5 and rearrange them as well before next week, so we don't have the same problem. This is just very convoluted. Comment out this and put this in. Comment out that and put this in. It's like, what? Let's see. Copy. And this is one of the older tutorials that I have, so good. Take out this finished code, looks like this. Put this on the end. Yes, that was not such a good thing. Let me undo this. I took the whole thing. I didn't realize that was down here. You know what I can do is just take out the whole method and replace it with this method. In fact, let me make my life easier. Just remove this entire method. If you're having the problems that I'm having trying to interpret the series of instructions to remove this, replace that, remove this, replace that, just take the entire method that's at the end of the code section here. It starts here with the finished method looks like this, which should be in bold or something. In fact, when I rewrite this, I'll definitely color code it a little bit better here. Copy this out, put it in here. This does work, by the way. So I know I just tested it the other day, but I didn't follow my instructions. Perhaps I should have followed my instructions. Okay, anyway, so we have this now. Cut and paste the entire method if you don't want to go through each one of the little minor changes that are occurring with it. Alright, so now we have to change the cell set bounds to return the height we obtained from the file inspector view, which in our terms was 77. So the height for row at index in our example was 77. So the finished code looks like this. Just uncomment the line that already exists and change the number to the value. So cell, and what method are we in? I believe we're in the same method. Yes, we are. There's a method that's commented in here. In fact, I think we can probably just leave this one alone, actually, and I think it would actually work on its own. Here it is here. Just uncomment this line of code right here, and it will set the cell bounds to 77, or change it to whatever value you have if it's not 77. Apparently that was in there originally when we first started this. We are getting to the bottom of this. This is a very important part. If you omit this step, the cell will be of the default height and appear scrunched up. Also note that we can get the custom cell by loading it into the nib file directly from the bundle. So custom cell, in fact, it'll work. It just will look funny. So the bound for the nib is loaded up automatically. Next we tag the values. Run the application. At this point, you'll still only have one entry in the friends dictionary, but it should be displaying all three parts. So now I'm kind of, should look like that. So let's see if we actually have this working. So what we did was we loaded the custom cell instead of the cell property. The cell property was linked to only the first item in the dictionary, item number 1. So we loaded 2 and 3 along with number 1, put it in the custom cell, took the custom cell, loaded it up inside of the table. We still have to run it, so let's see what happens. I believe this should run actually. This should work. You're not going to see anything, however, if you haven't copied over that plist file. So. Because the plist file is still holding it. Yeah. And mine doesn't work. Actually, mine is working. I don't have, well, mine's messed up. I made some major mistakes with mine, but mine is working when I click on it. So I'm going to use the solution from part 2 because I took out too much stuff when I cut and pasted. So I took out the label. I took out the identification of the label. So yours should actually work correctly. Mine's going to be messed up, which you can see it's messed up. So questions? I have a few. Why did I take out all that stuff I shouldn't have taken out? So, alright, so the next part is actually not too bad. We can actually get through it. It's not so bad. This one was the bad part. So I'm going to make my life easier. I'm going to open up the working solution, which is downloadable from the same location as before. So this is solution number 2. I just want to make sure I have a clean friends first. I've already loaded the file over there. It should load up actually correctly. It should, the plist file should load correctly. So let's see. Let's just make sure this one works. It's either that or I messed up the plist file, but I don't think I did that. Yeah, I had set the height to 77. You know what? Yeah, I didn't take out something I should have taken out. I didn't take out the loading of the cell. It wasn't that I removed something too much, I didn't take out something I should have taken out. Long story short, we've got the working version here. Mine got moved over a little bit. So it looks a little bit different than the one I just built. Actually, it all loads up correctly. If yours isn't working correctly because of those instructions were a little bit convoluted, go ahead and pull up the finished product. Finished product we'll use for the third part. In the third part of the tutorial, let's open that one up so we can see what the finished product actually looks like from part 3. Oops. I added some icons, by the way, in these samples. In part 3, which is the significant version, we're going to add the ability to add a friend and remove a friend. So this is part number 3. If we run it, we see what the functionality is going to look like. This is not so bad, actually. Not as bad as that second part, because this is doing stuff we're already familiar with. Of course, then I thought the jigsaw puzzle would be an easy one. Any moment, our friends is going to show up. Okay, so in here we have the plus and we have the edit going on here. And so when we click on it, still nothing happens. Nothing's ever going to happen, actually, in this part. So if you click on plus, this is a button. I just put a label on it so then we can add, but it's empty, so it's going to throw an error, which is perfectly understandable. So now I've probably messed up my plist file, but let's see. Hopefully I haven't. But technically, if we add something in here like another, we have another friend added. So we can see that the add functionality is working, and then we can come in here and we can go edit, and then we can delete, and press done. This is going to be done first automatically. This one's going to call a new view when we press on the plus button. And I believe we can probably get through this. Hopefully not too many hiccups. So this is part 3. I'm going to close part 3. I'm going to open up part 2. If you had any problems with your part 2, open it with a fresh part 2 that's available for you. Okay. So here's my fresh and clean part 2 that I'm going to start in with, because mine got problems. Alright, so in part 2 of the tutorial, we looked at using custom view cells. Okay, we got that part in the table view. We also followed along in this part. It starts the application left off from part 2. So we're going to start part 3 from part 2. So we'll load the source code for it. Double click on the file, load it all up. So to enable deletion of a row, which is actually kind of simple, we simply enable editing of the table view by uncommenting a couple of items in the UI table view controller. We actually put the code in an earlier step, which is if you changed your code around, your code's not going to match it. So open up friendsviewcontroller.m, uncomment the line shown here, and the view did load. So let's see. friendsviewcontroller.m, and in my view did load, I have a comment. Oh, look at that. Uncomment the following line to preserve the selection between the presentations. Uncomment the following line to display the edit button. Oh, it's here. Good. So self-navigation item, right bar item is going to be the edit button item. So the edit button item we're adding to this navigation bar. So when we put the navigation bar on, we automatically get right and left, and we also have center, but the title normally goes in the center, so we can put the title in the center. On the right, the edit button gives us the behavior automatically. So if we run the project right now, which is what I think this tutorial is going to have us do actually, I give it the edit button title. Oh, we're gonna uncomment both. So uncomment the following line to preserve the selection between presentations. Uncomment the following line. This will give us the edit button in the title bar. Run the application. Make sure you see the edit button on the top of the navigation bar. So I'm going to go back in here. I'm going to uncomment this one here as well. We don't need this one actually right now, but clear selection view will appear. Now, let's go ahead and run it. Make sure we got our edit at least coming up. So, which automatically gives us that functionality. It puts in those little red things on the sides. You might have to move your stuff over. Yeah. Oh, you already did it. Yeah. I believe I have it moved over already on this one, but we'll see. So edit. Yeah. So if your text is over here, the little button is going to show up in front of it. But I don't think the delete's going to work. It really doesn't work. Because we don't have anything programmed for it yet. But everything should work at this point. So it was just one line of code to add the edit button to the right side. We could actually move it over and move it to the left side if we wanted to as well. We would use the left bar button item and put the edit buttons. But this one is called an edit button item, which gives us, we also have a save button item as well that we can use. That gives us automatic behavior. Okay, so far so good. We have working edit button. But now we have to program the code. So add the table view comment editing style for row at index path method. So inside of the viewController.m, the friends viewController.m, we're going to put in the code for the comment editing style, which is going to give us our ability to edit the plist file. So let me just make sure there's nothing tricky about this. No, there isn't. Okay, very good. So let's see, if to delete the row from the data source. So it's actually going to delete it from our saved friends, or delete row at index. So we're going to delete it from the plist file, which is being used to populate out the cell information that's in the custom cell. So add the method. And I'm just going to put the method at the top. Yeah, I'll put it right here. And I'm going to have problems. Yeah, let me just take out the comment. You're right. Thank you. Thank you. There we go. Perfect. Perfect. Just leave it alone. All right. The word wrapping is kind of funny. What's wrong? Oh.
You may want to clean the code.
You're absolutely correct. Although that would have gone away next time I ran it. It would have gone away. Oops. Nope. Okay. Let's see what I got going on here. Delete. Oh, leave it alone. It's okay. We don't have that method yet. We don't have the method yet. Okay. So I have been looking at a message here that says friends delete entry with key name. Well, we haven't put it in yet. So hold on for a few minutes here. Here it is here. Alright, so since we're managing the underlying data with the friends class, we've added a method to delete an entry to the dictionary. So we need to delete the method. So add the following method prototypes to friend.h. And then add the method implementation to friend.m. So this method is missing, which is why we have that little message up there. Because once we've deleted it from the view, we're deleting it from the plist file, but we haven't created that method yet. So I'm going to go back into friends.h. Going to add the method prototype on the bottom here. Excuse me, friends viewController.h. Or is it friends.h? I think it's friends.h actually. Friends.h. Put it in friend. It's the friends that are the friends object is being populated by the plist. The controller is just making those instances of the friends and putting them into the table view. So it is friends.h that we want to go into. In friends.h, we have a save file. We haven't implemented the save yet, but we have load implemented. So now I'm going to paste this guy in here. This one's delete entry. So, and then in friends m, I'm going to add the code in to delete the entry, which is nothing more than, it's actually really simple here. This little bit here, add the method in the implementation to delete the method, to delete the entry. The entry is just going to take and create a dictionary temporary item to hold the friends, go through it and remove it for the key. So if it's keyed 0, 1, 2, 3, second array, it'll remove the one that we've actually identified for the edit button. When you click on the edit button, it actually picks the item number out of the table view and uses that as the index value. So we're going to delete with the entry with key. So let's go back into here, paste the code in here. I know the little yellow thing's going to go away in a few minutes as well, because we've implemented the method. Now over here in friends view controller.m, that should go away as well. Okay, very good. All right. So now what have we done? We've made a mutable copy of self-friends dictionary object in order to delete the entry, because we made a copy of it so we can find the entry, delete the entry, go back into the friends object, delete the reference to the mutable copy by setting it to nil. Locate the proper label that we have on the tag for value of 1. In a custom cell, get the tag name by the string, use that as the entry for the dictionary object to be deleted, and then we pass the key to the new method for the delete entry with key method. So we pass that to the method so it deletes it from the file itself in friends.plist. Removes the entry, but don't run it. If you're going to run this, don't delete anything yet, because we have no way of adding anything back in. To run it now, you can delete an entry. After the deletion, if we rerun the application, it will show an empty table because we have saved out the now empty dictionary. So don't run it yet. Let's wait until we can add something, and then we can delete what we add, essentially. So at this point, though, the delete key is working, because we've added the row, and it will delete it out of the plist file as well. So now would be a good time to add code, allowing us to add a new entry. So the idea here is to go into the custom cell XIB file and move the labels a bit to the right if you want, so it makes it so you can easily, actually we did that already, or you may have done that already. So once you see the delete coming up, we saw it before actually, you can move things around to make sure that it's not covering up the code. So in order to be able to add entries, we're going to need to put in another view controller. Remember that screen that comes up, that ugly looking screen I created that says add? So this one's actually quite straightforward. You'll be happy to know this is not going to be like this is just going to be a regular XIB file. So create a new UI view controller class and name it adding view controller. Make it a subclass of the UI view controller and create it with an XIB file. So here we go. I'm just going to copy the name so I have that correct. So if you run it, the delete key works, but don't run it yet. So file, new, file. So Coca Touch, Objective-C class. Oh, let's see, we want a view controller. UI view controller. And I'm going to call it adding view controller. Click on the button because we wanted the XIV file. That's why I say this one is very straightforward, because we're just going to create a class. We're going to create a new view controller with a view. So we're not going to have to nest anything. It's just going to call this view. Press next and save it in the file. Now we have a new set, and then we have a new XIB file, and the XIB file is going to be our adding interface. So we're going to have to populate the screen. You guys are familiar with doing this. So open the view controller, open the XIB file, add 3 labels, 3 text fields, and a button, as shown here. I'm actually just going to put the button in on mine. So name, email, and phone number with a button. So let's see. Name, oops, name, and we got our text fields. Mine's going to be kind of sloppy. I guess I could just cut and paste, but And I'll just put a UI button up here. Button, round rectangular guy. And this one's going to say save. Alright, that was my quick interface. Got creative, added an image. Okay, great. You can just put a plain button in here if you want. So create something that looks like that. You're getting the whole screen, so you don't have to worry about it. The whole screen's going to come up. So we're going to push the new view controller with the Friends view controller. But in order to do this, we need to put a new bar button item and add it to the bar, the title of Friends view controller. So add the code to the viewDidLoad method of friendsViewController.m, because we're going to push from Friends view controller to the adding view controller by the add button. So the plus, that little plus button is one of those built-in ones. We're going to stick it on the right hand side to the left of the edit button. And to do that, here's the code for it. So we're going to add a UI bar button item, add button item, that's going to be allocated, and then it's going to be initialized with a bar button system item, and it's going to be UI bar button add item add target, which gives us the plus automatically. It's another one of those built-in buttons, just like the edit button, that we're going to add it in. And then self-navigation, right bar button items, we're going to create an NS array of those bar button items, the edit button item and the add button item. That's going to be put on there automatically. So this is all the code you need, actually. Put this in the Friends view controller, so Friends view has the plus button. See if I can find Friends view controller.m. And I know I have a viewDidLoad somewhere in here. Here it is, viewDidLoad. Navigation bar item. I think I want to comment out the navigation bar item. No, actually let's just do this to be on the safe side. I'm just going to replace the whole method. Okay, we need it. I'm just going to go like this with it. Do we need that? We need that. Actually, we need that. We're adding the right bar button item. I don't think we need this one. Let's see what happens when I run it. We should get a plus and an edit button showing up. Add this code. I don't know anything about leaving what was there originally. I hate this tutorial. I'm going to totally rewrite it for next time. We got the plus, so I left that. I left it in there. I don't think it really matters, actually. The plus should cause an error. This one should work. Oh, I didn't move it over. Oh well. Alright, so we got, what we're looking for is to get that plus item. I left the code in there. I just added the other code underneath it. It's probably overkill because I'm adding a bar button item and then I'm adding it again with an array. So I could pull it out probably. We'll just leave it alone because it appears to be working. So the array of right bar button item controls all button items we want to display in the title bar. The edit button is a given. We just need to define the add button because that's the new one. So you know what? I am going to comment it out. I'm actually going to run it right now just to make sure. It bothers me I have it in there twice. So let's see. Because I'm adding it in here, I shouldn't need it. I shouldn't need it added in the first place. So. Yeah, take out, uncomment that first one. It bothers me. One is overriding the other, but I don't want there to be any problems further down the road. So I commented out the single edit button item because we're putting it in an array and we're loading it on self-navigation item. The right button is going to be equal to both of those two button items. So we're overriding this to begin with. So, okay, back to the tutorial. So let's see, in friendsViewController.h, we need to import the adding view controller class because we're gonna call this, we're gonna push it from the view controller friends. So we're gonna add one to identify here. So we're going to copy and paste this, adding view controller, and put it, this is the header file because we're going to use this inside of friends view controller. So I'm going to go back to friends view controller .h, and at the top here we're going to have adding view controller in here so that we can push to it. So this is in the header file. So we're going to import the adding view controller class and make it a property by adding the following two lines. So we're also going to make a property of it. Making a property of it is sort of equivalent to making an instance of it, actually, because we're doing essentially the same thing in that. So inside of the interface, I'm going to add it to the top, paste, so that we can make use of it inside to push to it. So now I have a property created, and the property is going to be called adding view controller. So now return to friends view controller.m. So we're going to do a lazy instantiation by adding the view controller object after synthesizing it. And then write a definition for display adding view controller. So the plus is going to display adding view controller for us. Display adding view controller, I should say. Twist on words. So add the synthesized line for the property that we just created. That should be fairly simple at this point. So in the .m, up here at the top, my convoluted code up here, I'm just going to put it underneath, adding the synthesize property for the adding view controller window. In fact, you can do this with any window you want, actually with any button you want. So this is how you push through a button to bring up another view controller. So the same concept will work over and over again. Add the following two methods. So the adding view controller instance, this is what's called the lazy initialization because we're going to make an instance of it through a method call. And the method's call is just going to load it. So adding is going to load the display view controller, which is going to add a view controller to our instance that's running. So in adding view controller, we're going to add this. There's this method and there's displaying view controller. So in the adding view controller, if we don't have it, if it's not visible, because we don't want to hit it twice, we don't have to worry about hitting it twice. Adding view controller is going to be alloc a new adding view controller with nothing, just initialize it with an empty nib, and then return. And then display is going to set the title. So self.addingViewController.title is going to be add a friend. And then self navigation controller push view controller to self adding view controller. So this is really it's not a sub view, but it's being pushed by the main view, so it can return back. So it's not necessarily an unload, it's a push to load up another view in the same window space essentially. So cut and paste and put these guys in the .m file. Copy. The same file that we were in before. Let's see, I'm going to just stick it right here. This is the friends view controller.m. We have our adding view controller initialization, lazy initialization, then we have our display adding view controller. Now I believe we should be able to run it. So run the app. You can now push to the new view controller. And note that nothing is going to happen when you press the add button because we haven't added any code yet. We haven't actually. So let's make sure this sucker runs actually at this point. Build succeeded, that's a good sign. Always a good sign. Doesn't really matter because it doesn't indicate whether or not it's actually going to run. It might come back with some really weird view controller error. No, it's not. So now we have a back. Where did the back button come from? It just comes up automatically. We don't have to worry about that. It just gave us, because we use these control buttons, so if we go here, we get the done automatically. You're just taking advantage of the built-in functionality. So plus, now nothing's going to happen. No errors. Nothing's going to happen because we don't actually. Oh, look at that. I don't have to respond the first. I don't have to resign the first responder. Okay, so hopefully we've made it this far. We're having much better luck with this part than we had in the other. But this is easier. This is not as convoluted. The instructions are easier as well. Alright, when you press the add, you should get this. Oh, that's not lovely. Okay, good. Okay, so far so good. If you try to add an entry, nothing happens. So let's add the code for adding an entry. Note that the adding view controller, we have not done anything to the adding view controller yet. We haven't done anything to it at all. So open adding view controller.h, and we're going to add a protocol and 2 properties. The protocol is going to be used for, what are we going to do? Adding delegate. And let me take a look here further down the road. Okay, we'll just take this for granted here. I take this as word, and we'll just follow along. I seriously have my doubts again, but okay. So, adding view controller.h looks pretty empty so far. Adding view controller. So I'm going to add the protocol for adding delegate. I'm going to put it below. I am going to put it below. Let's see, I'm missing the line. I'm missing the line. No, here it is. Wait a minute, let's just do it this way because I didn't actually add the entire protocol code. The protocol is being sloppily written inside of the view controller instead of being written outside of the view controller, which is why I was having some serious doubts right now. We defined and we added the protocol all in one shot. So in previous examples, we've created the protocols as protocols. And then we imported the protocol in, and then we used the protocol. Now we're defining the protocol inside of the view controller, which is okay. It's a simple protocol. What's it doing is user did add friend method. We don't actually have to use the protocol. It would actually work without it, but let's put it in. So let's see. We're still extending UI view controller. That's good. We're going to add 2 properties. One property is going to be the ID that's going to be used for adding delegate protocol. The other one is going to be an NS string for name, email, and phone number that we're going to put in here. So we're going to declare 3 strings and an ID. And then we're going to end it. So I'm just going to cut and paste this in here. There we go. Okay, so I put my properties in between the interface and the end. This is the definition of the protocol. I put it above. Again, it could go into a different file if we really wanted to be proper about this. Reuse it again, but we can just sloppily put it in here. It's okay. It's not really sloppy, I guess, because it's only one line, one method that's going to be in here. Which means if we're going to use this protocol, we're going to have to tell the class we're going to use the protocol, and if we abide by the protocol, then we have to implement this method, which is all it's basically doing. So why do we have to implement the method? We don't actually have to. Just put the method in if we wanted to. But then you wouldn't be able to use a protocol again. So, yes? The protocol itself is going to include a method that must be implemented inside a class. So if we abide by the protocol, if we add the protocol statement to say we're going to use the protocol, we are going to implement this method here, user did add friend. User did add friend is going to take the name and the email and the phone number that's going to come from the text strings that are going to come from the text boxes and create a new plist item for it.
So what's the difference between declaring a method in interface or
This could have gone in a separate file, protocol file. And then we could have included the protocol inside of the method. Instead, we defined the protocol inside of the method. We don't actually have to make a protocol for this, but we're going to do it anyway. We could have just made a method.
like simply we can declare
Uh-huh.
a method in interface?
Yeah.
Right?
Uh-huh.
So there is no specialty of
No. But if we want to, if we actually made the protocol, we can actually have any other class who wants to add a method, who wants to add an entry into, we can make one method implementation, with the same name, and anyone who's going to add entries into a friend's plist file would have to follow the same method to use the same kind of concept. Well, you use protocols when you want to enforce rules among many different classes, and you have all these different classes that are abiding by the same protocol, which means they all have the same method in them, which means that's how we're going to define how we're going to put friends into the plist file. So in theory, I can see the pro for it. I can see the reason why it's here. Because we want to make it so that if we have other, this is we're putting this inside of the adding view controller. Are we in the right one? I don't know at this point. Yes, we are inside of the adding view controller. To say that this adding view controller is going to use it. If we make another one, we can abide by the same protocol, and we'd have the same method. And so anywhere in the code that wanted to add a new friend to the list would use the same method. And we don't have to worry about which one it is, what it's called in each one of these different classes. It's all called the same thing.
So here, if we are declaring it within this .h file,
It's inside of it. The scope is inside of that.
It will be a local protocol.
That's what I was saying. I don't see why we normally, if we had more than one adding view controllers, we want to put it outside and then share it among all of them, but we only have one. So, yeah. It's kind of an interesting concept. It's if you remember the protocol example we did before, it's the same thing with the print. So we can print out a fraction, we can print out an integer, a complex number. I think that was actually, and it would all we do is call print. We don't care what kind of object it is. We just say print. Here we just say add a friend. We don't care what object it is. It's all going to add the friend the same way, or it's going to do it appropriately for whatever information it took in from the view. So, all right, moving right along. In the adding view controller.xib file, change the tag values. Did we already do this? For the 3, oh, we haven't done this yet. So we want to change the tag values for the 3 text fields from top to bottom to 1, 2, and 3. So let's see if I can get, and also set the return key property for each one of them to done. And then select auto enable return. I don't think we actually need that one, but let's put it anyway. Auto enable return key as well. Because when we press the return key, we're actually going to add the entries into each one of the plist items 1, 2, and 3. So the return key is very important. I don't know if I really like this design. I'd actually put it to the button instead. The button's just nothing more going to take all that information and actually write the plist thing. But if we're missing something, as we've seen in the example, it's going to come back and fail out on us and possibly not work to the best. But let's see what happens. Change the tag values for the text fields 1, 2, and 3. So let's go back here. Open up the XIV file. This one here. Click on the attribute inspector. What do I want? The view. The tag value here is 0. I'm going to change it to 1. I'm going to come up here, change the return type to done. And click on auto enable return key. So I'm going to do the same thing for this one, but this one's going to be 2. So this one's going to be done. Auto enable. And then the view. The tag for the view is going to be 2. Starting with 1, 2, 3. Very good. Instead of 0, 1, 2. Make sure I got my numbering correct. Third one. Third but last but not least. Auto view. Return type to done. And my tag is down here. This is going to be 3. So this field is going to be tagged as 1, 2, and 3. We could have just read the label. We could have just made properties out of them, actually. There's many different ways of doing this. This tutorial is all about the tag fields. So. Okay, very good. Alright, so we're going to select, okay, we did that, we did that. Why are all 3 of the text fields did end on exit events to an IB action method that is called text entered? So actually, I'm going to do the simplest thing here is I'm just going to cut and paste this thing and put it into the viewcontroller.h file for this guy. So if I click on the editor button, I get my friend's view controller. Very good, that's the one I wanted. And in my interface down here, I'll put it on the bottom here. Do I want this guy, my friend's view controller? This is adding view controller. I don't want that one. I want it on adding view controller. So I'm going to go and switch this. Adding view controller.h. Okay. Now I'm going to go to the bottom of this here. And I'm going to paste it in. So now I have this IB action says text entered. Now I'm going to go to each one of these guys here. I'm going to wire the did end on exit button to it. We got that one. So that when the entering of the text ends and it did end on exit and we have the exit type, return type set to done, which is going to push a done, it'll call this method. And this method is going to hopefully save our, get the captions or get the items that's in the text box. So now they're all three highlighted and they're all wired to the same event. Okay, so I'm going to do that cheat sheet here too. I'm going to wire it backwards as well. I'm going to take the add button press. This is for the button event, and we're going to do the touch up inside. So I'm doing things backwards today, so I'm just going to do it here. Paste this in here. It's not really backwards. It's just so I don't have to type the name in. On the button, I'm going to right mouse click, and any one of these things you want. Touch up inside was the one in the tutorial, so I'll use that one. So wire the buttons touch up inside to add button pressed. Wire all three of the text labels to the same text entered method, because it's all going to be the same code. And I guarantee we're probably going to be done with this file at this point. Yeah, okay, we are. So open up the adding view controller. So this should have reminded people that they should be adding this to the added view controller.h file. And another note to self for what I want to change. All right, so open up the adding view controller.m file and synthesize the properties. So we're going to synthesize this delegates. Yes, we are. And also the name and the email and the phone number, which is the information for the properties that we're setting in here. The ID, here's where we're using the property, by the way, or the protocol, by the way. It's going to be for the ID that we're setting. And the ID is called delegate. Because when I looked at that, I went, delegate? Where do we make an instance of that? We have a property here. This name is name, email, phone, and delegate. Delegate is of adding delegate protocol. This is where we use the protocol because we never changed the interface to use the protocol. The interface isn't really using it, just this ID is using it. And the ID is going to have a user did add friend. That's going to be associated with a name, an email, and a phone number. So we're taking three little pieces of information and we're associating it with one so that we can take that one item and add it in because there's three components to it. So on the viewcontroller.m, now that I'm convinced that we're doing this correctly, I'm going to add my synthesized line, or two lines I should say. I still haven't implemented the two methods, which is why I have this little yellow thing going on here. So hopefully it's not convoluted and I can just cut and paste the two methods. We have two methods to implement. We have the add button pressed. We also have the methods already created for us. Or we might actually have them. We might not actually. Let me take a look here. Because I cut and pasted the method prototypes in instead of creating them programmatically by dragging and wiring it the other direction, I don't actually have in my view controller, adding viewcontroller.m, I don't have those methods in here yet. Not even the empty bodies, which is one of the disadvantages you have when you paste the prototype in. You don't get the empty body that shows up in the implementation. So Not a bad idea, because now I can just make room at the bottom and cut and paste those whole methods in there, not have to worry about anything. So add the two methods. What are we going to add? We're going to add one that says, for the button pressed, this is the add button pressed. If it's equal to nothing, don't do anything. If it isn't, then self-delegate, user added, this is the method we're calling, which, did we implement that? We put the prototype in there, but did we implement the method yet? No, it's coming up. Okay, we haven't implemented that method yet, which means it's not going to work yet. We have to actually implement the method of that protocol. Oh, yes. Okay, so run the method, send it the name, the email, and the phone number from self. We have self identified as name, email, and phone number. Those are those properties that we created for those three boxes. And then navigate controller, pop to root, view controller, animated yes, which means go back to the original one. When we add a method in, it should return back to the calling view controller, which is the root view controller. So we do have a hierarchy. We have the root that called the adding view controller. It's not called root, but it's going to be essentially the same in terms of the concept. Alright, so I'm going to add the body of this message in here, method in here, and lo and behold, we're good. And then the next one we're going to add in is going to be the text entered. Really simple. All that's going to do is basically have self.name is equal to sender name, email is going to be this, sender phone number is going to be this. So wherever box we've pressed return on, this is the text entered method that the done event is going to trigger on the exit from each one of the boxes. And then we're going to resign the first responder at the end. Get rid of that keyboard, that's a pesky little keyboard up there. So I'm going to copy and put that one, and that should be old code. That should be old code at this point. And we have two ends, take away the end because we already have an end on the bottom of here. That end shouldn't have been in here. That end needs to be taken out. Okay. So I need to adapt the adding delegate protocol in Friends View Controller and implement the user did add friend for email, phone, and method. So here's the change that we're going to make to Friends View Controller. We are going to add this, but we're going to add it to Friends View Controller. So in the Friends View Controller.h file, adapt the protocol. So this is the adding view controller, so I'm actually going to do this in here instead. We're done with this interface here, so I'm going to click on Friends View Controller.h. Get rid of the side view here. Open up my view here. So my real estate looks pretty clean. Friends View Controller. How we're going to adapt the protocol? Well, okay, we're going to use the protocol by putting it at the end here. So Friends View Controller, that's inherited from UI Table View Controller, that is using adding view control, adding delegate is the protocol. That is defined in friend, I believe. That's where we put it. Adding, we defined it in adding view controller. Okay, yes. Okay, let me go back to this one so I make sure I'm on the right one. Okay. We still haven't implemented the method though. We haven't written the method body. So we need to do this to adapt the protocol, which we have done. So once we have adapted the protocol, we don't actually have to implement it until we're going to use it. If we were adapting it in Friends View Controller, we have to put the implementation inside of Friend View Controller, which is why this method is going to be inside of Friend View Controller. So first, in the init with style, set the adding view controller's delegate to self by adding this line. Man, this is the part of these. This is the instructions that I don't like. So, init with style. So we're inside of now Friends View Controller.m. So switch over to Friends View Controller.m. Do we have an init with style? Right. Let me just familiarize myself again with adding view controller. Init with style. Hey, look at that. We do have one. Am I inside of friendsViewController.m, and it with style method. Add adding ViewController delegate self. So adding view delegates to self, make the change inside of friends. Okay, I'm adding it to the right spot. Oh, here it is here. The finish method's right here. So we can just add it. Where's it adding? Oh, it's adding it to the initialization. I see. Okay, good. So put the method right under the initialization for self. So we're also adding view controller delegate self, which is adding it to the same. So it's going to be able to call the information from it. Next, you need to define the user did add friend. This is the member. This is the method that's part of the protocol that we added. So next, add this method. Expect to see an error. So we aren't done yet. Yes, I know that. Okay, so put the method body in. The method body is going to essentially, what's the method going to do? It's going to create an array of all three items: the email, the phone number, and the name we don't actually have to worry about because that's the key. These are the values that are associated with it. So the add entry with key is the name. The values are going to be in the value array. The value array is going to be the email and the phone number that we're going to add to it. Self friends, save friends. We already wrote this method, I believe. Or we may not have written this method, which is why this error is probably going to appear. And then reload the data from table self view. So it's going to go back and then populate the information that belongs to the calling view. Let's generate a compiler. The friends class has no add entry with key. Yeah, okay, so this method here, the add entry with key is missing. And it's not the save. This is the one that's missing. Perhaps we added this in a previous version. Who knows? That's probably the case. Okay, so we're going to cut and paste and stick this one in the friendsViewController.m. So go ahead and add that in. We are almost done with this actually. We'll just stick it in here. friendsViewController.m. This is the implementation of the protocol method. And lo and behold, we do get this error message here because this doesn't exist. Okay, good. Let's just clean this up a little bit. How come my error went away? Oh, I still have the error. But it's not showing up here. Okay, whatever. So let's see. Make some changes to fix the compiler and finish the implementation. We're practically done. We're coming down the home stretch here. So we just have to add the code to add the entry into the plist file. So in friends.h, which is the one that's keeping track of our plist file, friends.h is actually representing our friends that are in the text file. We need to add two method prototypes. Here they are here. So open up friends.h and add the prototypes. Friends.h, here it is. I don't know if it's worth it to have friends. Yes, it is. This tutorial, I need to rewrite it. It's just one of the original ones I put together, and it's not so good. I don't like it. Alright, so it's too convoluted. See, add the following method. Okay, so that's the function prototype. Now let's implement the method in the friends.m. See, why did I just say that? I don't know. I need to rewrite this. Alright, so let me go back to switch over to friends.m, and this is the last method we have to implement. It's supposed to get rid of this error that is not... Oh, we have the save friends. Here it is. We put the save friends in before we put in the rest of it. Okay. So now we have add entry with key. If I clean the product, now I have no issues. You're done. Save all your work and run the app. You can now add and delete your friends. I don't know, I'm having serious doubts in that right now, but let me see. I'm going to run it, see what happens. Don't worry, if it crashes and bangs, it's not going to actually. I think this one actually kind of worked. If not, we always have part 3 to start with for next time. I'm not going to go through part 4 today. I'm actually thinking about rewriting part 4 and 5 before next week. Make my life easier and your life too. Make it a little bit more educational. Alright, so let's see. If we add a friend in here, this is going to be Barbara again. And this is going to be email@email.com. And this is going to be 555 or 333-444-555. Save. Look at that. It works. Woohoo! Watch though, we have a problem. I think we're going to have a problem actually. Take this out and don't press the return. Alright, take this stuff out. I didn't press return, so I'm going to have it's dependent on the values. It's going to come up empty because here's a bug. The values for this, this, and this are dependent on the keyboard responder, on the did enter. So I actually have to do this. I'm pressing the return key. If I do that, it works. So there's a slight problem. It's not a bug, it's the logic. This is the problem you have when you use the return key. What if, in this particular case, I don't have to press the return key because my data is up high enough? So who's to say I'm going to press the return key, which means my entry, if this comes up empty, which is going to come up now, I'm not going to put anything in there. So we're not fixing this bug, by the way. You can fix it on your own. I'm not fixing this bug. All right, we're done for tonight. Thank you. Next time we'll have rewritten tutorials.